Absolutely right.
There we
Thank
go.
you. There we go.
All right.
Okay, Vicky.
Okay. So my name is Vicki Thomas, and I'm one of the first boomers to turn 80. And so we've gone from VW vans to Medicare plans, from transistor radios to iPhones, from free love to free shipping, and from Woodstock to wisdom. And why did I write this book? Now that the harder part of writing the book isn't writing it, it's the after, getting the word out, getting the story told. Man, and it's total consumption. So it used to be, and boomers, let me tell you who we are. Those of us who were born from 1946 to 1964. We span 18 years. And so I'm a leading edge boomer. I am the first to, not the first. Well, I'm 7 days into being the first boomer. I turned 80 January 7th. And the youngest boomer is now 64. And so where I am in life is a lot different than the younger boomer. The younger boomer is still working, maybe hasn't applied for Medicare yet. If you're in the United States, and that's only Steve, I think, right now. And so we're different. I'm going to be back in diapers, and that younger boomer is just first coming alive. So I wrote this. So I'll tell you what I wanted to be. I wanted to be an influencer, and I suck at it. And so I decided I'd take this course. It was offered by a former organization that I belong to. And I filled out all the questions, big, extensive questions like, what's your target market? Who are you going to reach? What are your messages? Give us 5 examples of topics you would talk about. Now tell us about yourself. And the bottom line was your age. 2 weeks later, 2 weeks, I was 78 at the time. 2 weeks later, I get a call from this guy named Duncan McCoy. And he calls and he says, Vicki, we got your application to participate in our How to Become an Influencer. And I said, oh, did I miss answering something? He said, oh, no, no, no. He said, everything's good. But he said, I just want to know if you want your money refunded. Why would I want my money refunded? And he said, well, everybody who's taking the course is in their 20s and 30s, and we wouldn't want you to feel uncomfortable. I said, I like 20s and 30s. And then I said, Duncan, you fell into an ism. He said, a what? I said, an ism, ageism. You have a perception of me. You don't know me. Your perception of me is probably I'm this frail old lady who, thought this might be something I'd like to do, maybe not in my right mind, but I'll pay my money and I'll do it. And I said, and you're wrong. And I said, that's the problem we have with aging, is the perceptions you have formed about us. So I said, no, I do not want my money back, and I do want to participate in the class. So I did. And then what I decided to do is I decided that I am a wordy person. I cannot be succinct. So I suck on Instagram. And I'm even more, Facebook is okay, but I'm really good on LinkedIn. So I post every Monday something on LinkedIn. And then when I posted my first story in January of when I was, well, last year, in January last year. And my first story, what does the news media all focus on in January? You're going to join the gym, you're going to eat healthy, you're going to lose weight, and here's the best diet, and here are all these things. So I decided, what's the best marker of our weight? Our jeans. How many jean sizes are in your closet? In my closet, they range from size 10 to 16. And My size 10s were when I was working and I was a commuter into ABC. I was on the train platform. I was leaving Westport, Connecticut for Grand Central Station every day, back and forth. I was running. Boy, I was fit shape. I don't think I'm going to see that. I don't even know why I save them. It's that hope that one day I'll be back in them. But they're in my closet. Then I have size 12s, which I was in all last year. And then came this winter that we had, and the stress of writing a book and everything with it. And my friend became the refrigerator. So I find myself back in 14s. And every year I go to try them on. Like, where am I? Where am I? It's my annual thing. Where am I in my size? So that was my first post. Then what I decided to do is I would take each post that I write every Monday and expand it into a 750 to 2,000 word article, so that my book topics became snackables, because less than 50% of the people read a book or opened a book. So I decided, since, and having been in network television, I was in network television when TV commercials were 60 seconds. I was in network television when TV commercials went to 30 seconds. I wasn't in network television when they went to 15 seconds. And then you look at what has happened now with this device and how it has become our source of information. Snackable little sound bites. Now, network television really started the business of sound bites. And so sound bites now are captured here in little mini things. So that was one of my first articles I wrote. Now let's look at who we were as boomers. We were once the darlings of Madison Avenue. Everybody wrote about us. We were featured in ads. We were a part of ad campaigns. Voters or politicians courted us. Magazine articles wrote about us all the time, baby boomers and all this kind of stuff. The headline used to be 50,000 boomers turn, or 10,000 boomers turn 50 every day. Now, crickets. You don't hear that much about baby boomers. It's like suddenly we vanished. We've kind of been pushed aside to the silent generation, because the generation that they're focusing on are the millennials and Gen Z. And so you don't hear that much about us. So basically, what we've gone through as boomers is we've gone from a cultural revolution. You looked at how music shaped us. You looked at your favorite song that you sang in the 60s, the words you remember. And you look at Aretha Franklin. Respect was one of the popular songs of the 60s. Well, that was originally written by Otis Redding. And what did Otis Redding want? He wanted respect from his wife when he returned home from work. Well, Aretha got that, and she flipped it. And it became all about women and our rights. So music became an important part of us. You look at Creedence Clearwater, Favorite Son. Those kids who are privileged kids who exist today too, who chose not to participate in the war. And you look at some of the other ones, the times they are a-changing. So music told us when to fall in love. Music told us when to take action. Music molded us, and we became the first generation really to defy authority. We took a stand. We marched for civil rights. We marched for women's rights. We marched against Vietnam. We stood up and we made a difference. And we were heard. And that followed us into the workplace. And look at fitness, how fitness followed. When I was in high school, we had to have the Kennedy physical fitness test. You had to be able to do so many sit-ups, so many push-ups, so many pull-ups, so many, I don't know, it was a lot. And it was actually a grade. So that followed me into my workplace. And what happened in the workplace? Pretty soon gyms show up at work. Pretty soon when you travel, you go, does your hotel have a gym? And you make your reservations based on the fact that your hotel has a gym. So look at how we continue to influence. We were influencers before there were influencers. We are the biggest influencers. And so we've gone now from a cultural revolution to a longevity revolution. But nobody's writing about it. Nobody's talking about it. And yet, let's look at 7,000 boomers are dying every day. Our boomer generation is going to leave $84 trillion in wealth transfer that will go to the millennials and to Gen X. And now you look at who are we now? I know that Clementine talked about who are we now that we are no longer who we once were. And who are we now? We have not, for those who are, you look at I look at my husband. In fact, that's a chapter in my book. And my husband was a contractor. And I'm in my home office, and his desk is right over there. And he would come in periodically, and he would be ticked off at somebody's bid or ticked off that somebody didn't show off. He would always come in and seem like he was ticked off. And boom, he'd be gone. Just like drywall does. Perfect. He wasn't here. Well, he retired. And he's here. Well, he's not here now. I made sure he wasn't. But he sits at his computer and he's typing. And when he types, he said, John, I don't think this bid is going to fly because I think you're going to tick off the customer. Can you do something? And I look at him and he says, what? I said, are you doing your own TED Talk? What are you doing over there? He said, I'm typing a note to John. He needs to bring down his bid. I said, so you say the words that you're typing? He says, yeah, head, words, fingers. I said, this is not head and shoulders, knees and toes. I said, if you're going to be in the office, you have to be quiet. He goes, okay, quiet. I won't say anything. Not say anything. Okay, quiet. I'm working away. And then he said, I'm going to do my calendar and I'll put everybody's birthday in it. I said, Steve, why don't you do it in your Apple iPhone and then you'll never have to do it again because it'll always remind you. Oh no, I have to do it in my contractor's calendar. So he writes him in his contract. He turns to me a little while later and he says, when's Bob Shoemaker's birthday? I said, August 7th. He said, that's when Renee's is. I said, two people can be born on the same day. And then he looks at me and he says, what? I said, get the out of my office. So what I did is I took and I repurposed my husband. My husband is a contractor. I live in a very affluent part of Connecticut. The reason why he was successful is because people here, the men, executives, go to work, stand on the plane platform like I did, but they can't do a thing. And so I repurposed him. I said, Steve, you know every code, you know everything about how to maintain a house. Look at all these young kids who are homeowners, and you could help them. How do you prepare your house for winter? Where's the shutoff valve in the case you have a leak? All of the things that you can help them do when they become homeowners. So I took his little flyer that I created and I dropped it off at every real estate company in Connecticut. And by God, he now goes around with his little clipboard and he's meeting with young kids who are new homeowners about, I just got this bid from this contractor. Can you look at it? Do you think it's too high? So he is totally happy. And you know what else it did? It made him feel relevant. It made him feel wanted. It made him feel like he mattered. Relevance, wanted, and mattering to all of us. Isn't that what we want? And isn't that something we don't want to, what do I want to say, have go away? And yet, Somehow, when we retire from work, we were our job description. That was our identity. And now, who are we now? How do we reinvent ourselves? What do we do? One of the things we do at My Future Purpose, and how did we start My Future Purpose? I mean, I even wrote about that in the book. And I called my friend Joyce Cohen. I mean, Joyce Cohen is the queen of being able to write a workshop about everything. In fact, she can write a workshop about farts. I'm sure she could put that together. And I called her and I said, Joyce, have you noticed how often purpose is used? It's in the news, it's in articles, it's in books. Everybody's talking about purpose. I said, I think there's a business here. So she and I started My Future Purpose. And we were going to do conferences. And we put together this great conference. In fact, I still have the whole notebook on it right here. This was going to be our conference. And look at this was a year conference. All the speakers, everything all lined up. And when did we do it? We launched it. We're ready to go. Guess what happens? COVID. So we had to regroup. We had to regroup. And so what we decided to do, that's how these Zoom meetings started. I said to her, why don't we take these speakers and have them be a guest? And we do Zoom meetings and invite people because they're isolated. They aren't on the train platform. They're not caught in traffic. They're now discovering, oh my God, we have kids. What are these creatures going into the refrigerator all the time? And they're making sourdough bread. They're connecting to their next door neighbors, whatever they are. So we started these Zoom meetings where we, like Ingrid, like so many others here, have guest speakers to be able to share. So what we decided is really, if you're going to find your purpose, there are 6 buckets. We added a 7th. The first, you can become an advocate. You can advocate for yourself, or you can advocate for a cause you believe in. Good can come from less. Look at all of the nonprofits that formed as a result of some tragedy. Mothers Against Drunk Driving, all from 9/11, the nonprofits that emerged. You can become an entrepreneur. You can start your own business. You can open a restaurant. You can do something that you control. You can volunteer. My goodness, I volunteered when I didn't know where I was going to go. So I volunteered for Connecticut Public Television. And I, what it does is you bring your wisdom, you bring your skill sets. And who knows, you could volunteer in that company, that nonprofit could say, we really value what you bring to this organization. Could we put you on staff? Could we give you a position? So volunteering can lead to a lot of things, or you might want to learn from being a volunteer and start your own nonprofit. You can have an interest or a hobby. Look at all the quilters. Look at all the gardeners. Look at all the men who are into remodeling, rehabbing old cars. All kinds of hobbies and special interests. Or if you're so inclined, you can go to work for a company whose purpose aligns with yours. Joyce wanted to add this one, and I kind of agree. Or you can do what the hell you ever want. And so those buckets have not changed in everything we've done. And in fact, we created a workbook, and it's called Pathways to Purpose. And everything in here talks about each one of those sections. And we even have a deck of cards. And the deck of cards are coded, and they ask you a series of questions. And I'll take one out. One might say, here's one. It says, after a loss, I want to start a cause that is part of it. I'm capable of developing a strategic plan. So you take all these cards, there's 48 of them, you put them in a pile, and you create a yes category, a no category, or a maybe category. And your yes pile is going to be very large. You then take your yes pile and you cull it down to 10. Then you take your top one and you put it at top, and you put the other two underneath, three underneath, and so on. You turn them over, and they're all color coded. So this would be good from loss. This would mean entrepreneurship. And so what it does is it kind of gives you a hint of where you lean. Do you lean toward volunteering? Do you lean toward starting your own business? And sometimes you can have a combination of two. We use this as a way to begin. That's in our book. I talk about it a little bit. Um, one of the other things that I talk about, I want to talk about my most successful post. I told you I post every Monday on LinkedIn. And I posted my view on ageism. And everybody is familiar or has become subject to perhaps ageism. Now, when I started, I would get 5, maybe 10. Maybe my friends responded. And what I posted on ageism got 12,500 responses. I went from 5 to 10 to, and you know why? Because I poked the bear. Because I took an issue. Because I don't believe that we need to make ourselves as we age or as whatever age we are, that we are victims. And if you position yourself as a victim, you've lost that positive attitude, that positive spin that you can say, I may be 50 and you locked me out of my job, but damn it, I'm going to start my own business because I have what it takes to start my own business. And you've got to have the attitude of being able to go on, not being a victim. When you make yourself into a victim, people don't feel so sorry for you. But when you get out there and you reinvent and you're positive and you move in with purpose, people pay attention. So that one caused, and it's in my book, My View on Ageism, and all the things that, and everything in my book, every chapter that I write, every section that I write, let's see, I write 3 questions at the end. I always ask 3 questions at the end of every snackable segment. This one happens to be, how are you lamenting or embracing your current life stage? How have you challenged stereotype when you hear ageist comments? How can you inspire others to become more vocal about breaking down tired stereotypes? So every chapter, every snackable in this book has 3 questions to ask you. And just so happened, I happened to open the copy on ageism. And I did, the other thing that one of the other ones that I wrote about is invisibility. As a woman, have you ever felt invisible? Do you know what it's like to feel invisible? And how does it start? It starts when you go into a store and the young girls are there, they're waiting on you. And they will, can I help you, ma'am? Ma'am, can I help you, ma'am? It used to be, can I help you, miss? Can I help you find something? No, it's now, can I help you, ma'am? I get a lot of my makeup from Ulta. Now, I'm a loyal brand. Whatever I use 20 years ago is still my brand. And so I go in with a plastic bag. And when I run out of it, my plastic bag has whatever I run, and that's what I need to have replaced. I'm standing in Ulta and I'm waiting first, and they always have these young people that wait on you. And in walks this mom and daughter. And I saw this salesperson go to help the mom and daughter because the daughter wanted to have a new fingernail polish that was, I don't know, gel or something. And then I went over to the desk and I said, I'm an easy customer. I said, I just want this. Just take me to where it's at. That's all I want. And I said, I don't want you to ignore me anymore. And I want to tell you how this happened. I had a friend, she's passed. Her name is Connie Goldman. Connie Goldman was always pregnant with her next book. She wrote The Grandparent Connection. She wrote Gardening from Tending the Earth, Mending the Soul, Late Life Relationships. Who are you now, now that you're no longer who you used to be? Caregiving. She wrote a book on interviewed caregivers. She was an NPR announcer. And she and I would go to conferences together and we'd room together, especially when they were in California. We always did retail therapy. I needed some makeup. She did. She's short little Jewish lady, mighty little Jewish lady. And we're standing in front of the counter, and the sales clerk looks right past her, looks at me, and says, "Did you find everything you wanted?" I said, "Yes, I did." And then Connie goes, "Excuse me, I'm next. Did you not see me standing here?" We walk out of the store, and she says to me, "Your day is coming, for you too will become an invisible woman." And boy, those words ring true. And she told me, "Here's what you do. You speak up. You don't let yourself be invisible. Wear bold colors." She says, "Get rid of the whites and the beige and all that stuff. Stand out to be seen, to be visible." That's right. And the pink over here that Deborah has on, that's what we really need to do. I did another section. As I said, we are on, everybody has a playlist. Does everybody have a playlist on their phone with music? No? Okay. So I went to a Willie Nelson concert. I have lots of playlists. I mean, this iPhone is loaded with all kinds of playlists. And I went to a Willie Nelson conference in Connecticut, 92 years old. He was 92, still plays, sits a lot. But he sang a song I never heard. And it's called "Roll Me Up and Smoke Me When I Die." Roll me up and smoke me when I die. Wow, I'd never heard that song. And then I'm driving home, and those words are playing in my mind. And I'm thinking, we don't have kids. So how will they know what I want for my celebration of life if I don't tell them? If I don't have it written out in my important papers? That's in my book, Planning Your Celebration of Life. And so I decided that for my playlist, I want to have Don't Worry, Be Happy. Another one, Bites the Dust. I want to have some of these songs played at my celebration of life. I want people to know where I want my celebration of life. And we're sailors. My husband and I are sailors. And so one of the places we sails is the Caribbean, the British Virgin Islands, and the farthest island. Gosh, why is it close my mind? But I want my ashes dropped from that place, because when they're dropped from that place, there's nowhere else but Europe. And I want to wash up on the shores somewhere, maybe somewhere in Europe. Who knows? Who knows? But what I've done is I've put in fact, I'm looking at them, put them in my important papers. Here's my celebration of life. Here's where I want it. Here's who I want. Here's some funds for the place to make reservations so that you can stay there. And these are the songs I want played. And these are my wishes. There's another one I did. It's in the book. How many people?
Vicky,
Yeah.
Vicky.
Okay, sorry.
You have story over story, and that's fantastic, and I know there's many more stories,
Okay.
focus areas in your books. I think there might be some comments or questions of those who are in the room, because it's I think everyone feels aligned with what you mentioned. When we were influencers before there were influencers, absolutely. I wrote down flower power. I haven't heard you mention it, but that was the time. It couldn't be crazy enough. And it's different from now. I showed my daughters recently one of the pictures of people who are really that flower power type, and they were like, that is unimaginable. I do believe what you're saying. You know, we have that voice. Uh, we need to use it. We still need to use it, absolutely. And we can use it in many topics. For one of the people, I hate talking about ageism because it is all up to us. What we do, how we act, how we show up in the world. And, then I was watching actually on LinkedIn a short video today, and it was a lady high in corporate world and sharing that women over 50 disappeared. They were invisible in the corporate world. And I said, I think you need to come and look at the Wise Move Society, where there are so many women over 50, over 60, over 70, even over 80, that have a story to share, that are active, that contribute to society, to workplace, to whatever, as long as it is aligned with their purpose and their values. Because I do believe that it comes very much from what is your perspective? Where do you come from? How do you look at certain things? And what can we still do? So it's good to hear that Clementine is, moving into that direction. Of course, Wise Move Society is always talking about this, and I know more of you here as well. So that's a little bit my first reaction. Gita, I saw you. Do you have a comment, question to Vicky?
Ah, you are a face reader, mind reader. Okay. So, Vicky, this was great. Absolutely wonderful. One resonates with almost everything that you said. I don't have a question and I don't have a comment. I just have a point of view, which is that whenever I listen to talks like this, very often the focus is on someone who has been working in a corporate or someplace, and then there is a lull after the retirement. I have a comment on that because that is something which I cannot relate to because I never worked for. I'm an entrepreneur. So, that also, if you could put in that entrepreneurship, when you earn, when you're financially viable even after that, uh, as an entrepreneur, there is a continuity of purpose throughout. And before you know it, you're 70 and you're 80, and you say, hey, I haven't slowed down. So,
Mhm,
if you could bring that point out for the others to relate to, that little dip doesn't come. It's just a point of view that I have, and it comes from me because I'm 70 plus, and I don't see myself slowing down or feeling the invisibility or the lack of purpose. In fact, there is lack of time for what all that I want to do and I want to
mhm,
start and I want to go on with. It's just a perspective from a different pedestal. Thank you.
Okay.
mhm,
We do talk about, and I'm an entrepreneur. I
mhm,
mean, I produced, when I left network television, I produced a video exercise program called the Dancing Grannies. And they were all in, like the oldest granny was, or the youngest granny was 55. And I did it when Angela Lansbury and Rita Moreno came out with theirs. They had marquee value. My ladies did not. But I told
mhm,
the story about every granny and why they got into exercise. One, because she had arthritis. One, because she was a 16, went to a size 4. All stories. And I got them on the Phil Donahue show, which was a syndicated TV show. And I I thrived at entrepreneurship and being in my own business and being in control. And I totally agree with you. And there is
mhm,
no dip. There is no dip. And aren't we all lucky that we, at our age as women, successful women, just continue and to not dip. That we go, my motto is carry me out on a flip chart. I'm going until my last breath is like that's just the way it's going to be.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and Vicky, it's really important that you also share that you are that creative entrepreneur, moving from one thing to the next. And I love it that Gita also mentioned that this is something that, and we, as the Wise Move Society, we also feel very comfortable about it, because entrepreneurship, our program for entrepreneurs is something that we feel very passionate about. And there are so many people later stage of life who choose entrepreneurship. They don't become invisible, they're going to do something else. And if something says they're invisible in corporate life, yes, they may be invisible in
Yeah.
corporate life, but there's a whole world out there what they are doing. And we need to look at that. Steve.
I'm muted. Yes. Hello. A couple of things. Deborah, I spend my spring, summer, and fall in Victoria and Galliano Island. So, hi there. And we need to do something. Yes. Okay. We'll figure that out. Uh, I I'm so happy to be here, Vicky, and support the work you're doing, and Engen, the work you're doing. And one of the things that strikes me about boomers is the um, the lack of perception that I've had that there's many different varieties of boomers. And the ones you're talking about are the ones I relate to and the ones I grew up with. But there is a huge number of people in this age cohort that are very different. And I would say very conservative, very right leaning, very, really did not experience the world that you're speaking of, even though they were living in
Mhm,
it, they
mhm.
weren't living of it.
Yeah. Mhm,
And I find that really interesting when we try to put labels and cohorts on different generations, because I think there's huge differentiations there. You two know my story where I was more of a later life creative and realized some of my purpose later in life when I didn't realize I had a creative bone in my body, as I've shared, and allowing creativity and allowing newness to come in. And I'm actually all for pauses. I'm all for not having it figuring out moving from one to the next, but being able to have that quiet reflective time where it finds you. And I think when I think uh, I spent a lot of my time following it, and now I'm allowing it to follow me, and I'm finding the gifts quite remarkable in that way. So I'm so glad I'm here, and so glad to hear you speak of your book, and to visit with your group again. Thank
mhm.
you.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah. Just very short, very, very short. You learned to play the piano later in life and have your own music now online.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it happened during COVID, and I think that that's a period where a lot of people languished, and some folks blossomed. And I think that that's where I think we really need help, of helping people who are struggling to kind of find their way.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
I think I see it more and more. And Vicky, I'd love you to comment about the idea of we don't read anymore. I find that very, very sad.
Hmm.
And I'm finding that in writing that I'm doing now, even getting early readers that are friends, and oh gee, I have trouble focusing and reading a book. So any thoughts on that, Vicky?
Well, it's interesting. I am going out to the Los Angeles Times Book Fair. It is at the University of Southern California. My book has been selected to be featured. I'm part of a panel. I'm going out to speak about my book as well as to book sign. Do you know that 100,000 people are projected to attend this book fair? I had no
Wow.
idea. There's one in London. I guess it has the same kind of thing. There's the Library Association that is in Chicago in June. And you know, there are book readers. And there are people and I don't want to say an age group because I'm not sure. I think young people read books. And so, but it's gotten less. And
The attention span I'm thinking of,
that's
not
right.
yeah, so
Focus.
it's yeah, I'm finding it pretty interesting, and this is, I think, creating it where we want
Correct.
things in smaller snippets.
Yep.
Hmm.
Everything is streaming, very simple. And I do believe it started, when I look at network television and we did sound bites. We pulled out sound bites. We now live in a sound bite world, whether it's on this or whether it's somewhere. And I think, that's why I wrote my book in snackable sections. There's
Yeah,
no order
Hmm.
to it. You can pick up a section and I'll read this one, or I'll take this one to the bathroom with me. I can do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
But, to write a chapter where you're just pounding out words, because publishers want you to have 3,000 to 5,000 words per chapter. Really? I don't have 3,000 words, although some people think I can't shut up, but,
Hmm.
that's probably,
Hmm.
but anyway, I do think there are readers. I had no idea until I was invited to the LA Times Book Festival to showcase my book. And I said, well, approximately how many people do you expect? About 100,000. Really?
Hmm. Yeah.
Wow. So it's at the
Still,
University of Southern California.
so still a lot of readers.
Yeah.
Yes, fantastic. I'm going to move to anyone else. Clara, Lani, Deborah, Clementine, anyone who, yes, Deborah.
Vicki, congratulations. You
Thank
really got chutzpah. I think we can all agree that we've reached this time in our life where we've been there, done that, and there's just something different about how we progress forward. It's not with the same push and trying to get up the mountain. We've already gone up to our own mountain. At least that's how I feel. And now it's time to let life unfold and bring us, like Steve, what you were saying, the reflective. We're entering the spiritual phase if we haven't already been there for umpteen years.
Mhm.
We're growing and growing and growing and growing. At least I feel I am. And I just, my whole thing is let it unfold, let the universe bring me what I'm supposed to have rather than pushing the
Mhm.
universe and saying, this is what I want. This is what I want. Because I think the universe knows better. Everybody's like, oh my God, like keep bringing her stuff and bringing her stuff. She's like, she's so on her course that she can't even hear what I'm saying.
Mhm.
And so for me, that's very blissful. For me, it's very blissful. So I appreciate your book and what you're bringing to the world and getting people out there because we've got a lot to say. We've got a lot of life experiences and we can make those differences
It's
in our own way, in our own voice, because everybody, if we want to look at it from a marketing standpoint, everybody has their own market.
Yes, very true. I signed my book. It was very hard for me even to sign a book simply. I mean, because I write frickin' story. So I now say I sign, use your wisdom to make an impact.
Yeah,
Mhm.
beautiful.
That's what we really need to do.
Mhm.
You can make an impact on your family. You are now matriarchs and patriarchs of your family. And keeping that family together and that story together and that history together is so important. And so I think that there is that moment of reflection, time to, and boy, I'll tell you, I have not hit that. It's like, I don't know, I lived in a corporate world, and especially in network television, where everything was so fast. Breaking news, all this, whatever. And I never got off that fast track. And I do have hobbies. I sew. I have crafts. I garden, but I have to be on the track. Don't ask me why. It's programmed, it's ingrained in me. It's who I am, it's my DNA.
Mhm.
I can't help. But the thing that I do believe, number one, purpose does not retire. We all have
No.
to have a purpose. And the thing that I like is I have to-do lists. I mean, there's stuff on my computer, and I make a to-do list every night. And sometimes my to-do list over here winds up over here because I didn't get to this to-do list. But what it does, it gives me a reason to wake up every morning. It gives me a purpose. For me, that's my purpose. For those who who can settle down in those peaceful moments, I admire that. For those who can meditate, oh my God, I can't even do that. I've tried, and it's like this chatter is just going on. I can't quiet my mind. But for those who can and find solace in that moment of meditation, I'm envious because that's not me. I've not arrived at that. I don't know that I ever will. So I probably should sign up instead of an influencer class, a program on how to someplace in the desert to go learn how to meditate in
A
some
retreat. Yeah.
yeah.
But you can also walk on the walk at the beach.
Walk on
Vicky.
the beach.
Of course, some
I
people
think.
are going to the forest. That also helps for many people. So, yeah, thank you, Vicky. Very short. It's 3 minutes to the hour. So I already see a lot of people putting things in the chat. Clara, Lani, Clementine, last things.
Just
Short.
very short. Thank you, Figgy. I wish you a great time in LA. I'm pretty sure you will meet my friend Susie Pruden. She's 84 and she has wrote endless books, and she's the publisher of the Itty Bitty Small Books now. But I'm sure she's always there.
Probably. Thank you.
What's her name?
Susie Pruden.
Write it in the
PR.
chat. Write it in the chat,
Yeah.
please. Yes.
I'll
Thank
have to
you,
look it up.
Clementine. Thank you. Clara, last words?
Walk and talk meditation on the beach.
Is that
Last word.
a program?
No, that's just
No.
go to the beach and
Go
walk.
to the walk.
I do.
On your own, preferably.
On your own.
Yes.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Thank you very much, Vicky.
Lanny,
Lani.
Thank you. It was a pleasure meeting you all. And
Wait, where's one? Lani, any questions? Any comments? Last word?
I just want to say thank you that I can be part of this. I'm so absolutely blessed, and thank you, Vicky. That was so good. I want to say to you, my dad's birthday is your birthday. He didn't make it to 80. He passed away last year, but he was very different from you, but definitely influencer. And it was just so special that you are sharing a birthday. And the only one thing I'll say is I lived with a disability, and to be invisible, you can be in your 20s. And I certainly faced that. And yeah, I wrote a book and it will be published soonish. So, but I'll talk more about
Good.
that on
Yes,
another
yes.
time.
Love
Yes.
to hear more about it. Yes, thank
yeah,
you.
for sure.
Thank you so much, Vicky, for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll also share your book and where it can be bought. We wish you a lot of luck in at the book
LA.
fair. That sounds fantastic. To all the others, great that you've been there. You know, in 4 weeks' time, there will be another Wisdom Well with a great guest speaker. So hope you all join us. And of course, you can join the Wise Move Society for our weekly Wisdom Well. So thank you all. Have a wonderful day and see you
Thank
next time.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.